Welcome to another episode of Chilling Fireside Stories. Today I'll be taking you deep into one of the most perplexing unsolved mysteries in recent history, the unsolved disappearance of Phoenix Coldon. So grab a warm drink, sit by the fire and settle in as I unravel this mysterious case. Before we begin, if you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss another story. Your support truly means everything to me and it helps keep this channel going. I also want to give a quick warning. This is a real-life story and some details may be unsettling for sensitive viewers. Please take care as I guide you through this case. Now let's begin. It was an ordinary day on December 18, 2011 in Spanish Lake, Missouri. Phoenix Coldon, a 23-year-old young woman with a promising future ahead of her, left her family home around 3 p.m. in her black 1998 Chevrolet Blazer. She didn't tell anyone where she was going and her departure seemed completely normal. Little did anyone know that this was the last time Phoenix Coldon would ever be seen. Her vehicle was found later that day, strangely abandoned at the intersection of 9th Street and St. Clair Avenue in East St. Louis, Illinois. The engine was running and the car doors were left open. There were no signs of struggle, no personal belongings left behind, and no clear evidence of foul play. Yet Phoenix had disappeared without a trace. To truly understand the gravity of Phoenix's disappearance, we need to take a closer look at her life. Phoenix Lucille Coldon was born on May 23, 1988 in California, though she spent most of her life in St. Louis, Missouri. Described as an intelligent, soft-spoken young woman, she had a close relationship with her family, especially her mother, Goldia Coldon, and father, Lawrence Coldon. Raised in a devout Christian household, Phoenix was instilled with strong values and discipline. She played the piano at church, was heavily involved in community activities, and was considered a bright, responsible person by those who knew her. Phoenix was homeschooled for much of her early education and later attended the University of Missouri-St. Louis, majoring in biology. Her parents had high hopes for her future, and her academic pursuits suggested that she was destined for success. However, Phoenix was also going through personal struggles, an aspect of her life that her parents didn't fully understand at the time. Though Phoenix had a generally good relationship with her family, close friends have hinted that she may have felt stifled by the pressure to meet her parents' expectations. Her friends described her as introverted yet thoughtful, someone who valued her privacy but was always willing to help others when needed. Phoenix's circle of friends was not very large, but they were loyal, and many of them remained baffled by her sudden disappearance, unable to reconcile it with the Phoenix they knew. In the months leading up to her disappearance, she had become more secretive, withdrawn from some of her closest friends. Rumors circulated that Phoenix may have been involved with individuals or groups that her family didn't approve of or perhaps didn't even know about. There were suggestions that Phoenix had entered a relationship that she kept hidden from her family, possibly due to their strict values or their disapproval of her choice in a partner. Friends also hinted that Phoenix had been hanging out with people who may have had a negative influence on her life. These were individuals who could have introduced her to dangerous situations or activities outside of her normal, structured life. In addition to her secretive behavior, it was reported that Phoenix had possibly been dealing with personal struggles that she hadn't confided in anyone about. Some have speculated that she may have been facing emotional distress or pressure, which led her to distance herself from her loved ones. Though none of these rumors or speculations have been fully substantiated, they have added a layer of complexity to the case, suggesting that Phoenix may have been involved in situations that she deliberately kept from her family. On the day of Phoenix Coldon's disappearance, December 18, 2011, her day seemed to begin like any other. According to her mother, Goldia Coldon, Phoenix was at home that morning and appeared to be acting normally. Phoenix left the family's home in Spanish Lake, Missouri, a suburb of St. Louis, around 3 p.m. She told her mother that she was going to the store or possibly visiting a friend, though she didn't provide any specific details. Phoenix drove away in her black 1998 Chevrolet Blazer, and that was the last time her parents saw her. By 5:30 p.m., just 2.5 hours later, her SUV was found abandoned in East St. Louis, Illinois, about 25 minutes away from her home. The vehicle was left with the engine still running, doors open and keys in the ignition. Inside the car, police found Phoenix's shoes, purse and identification, but there was no sign of struggle or of Phoenix herself. Strangely, the location where her car was found was considered a high-crime area, further raising concerns about what might have happened. Phoenix's parents did not initially realize that anything was wrong until later that evening. When Phoenix didn't return home, they became worried and her mother called Phoenix's phone repeatedly, but it went straight to voicemail. As the night progressed, their concern grew. By the next day, they filed a missing persons report with the police, initiating a search for Phoenix. It is important to note that the discovery of Phoenix's abandoned SUV happened before her family officially reported her missing. The vehicle was towed that evening, but it wasn't connected to her disappearance until later. Police didn't notify Phoenix's family about the car until about 2 weeks after it was found, which delayed the investigation and added to the confusion surrounding her disappearance. Goldia and Lawrence Coldon, Phoenix's parents, were the ones who reported her missing to the police on December 19, 2011, when it became clear that she had vanished without explanation. This delay in connecting the abandoned vehicle to Phoenix's case and the time lost before the investigation truly began is one of the key challenges that hindered the search for her. Despite extensive efforts to locate Phoenix and numerous tips over the years, her disappearance remains unsolved. Goldia and Lawrence Coldon, Phoenix's parents, have been relentless in their search for their daughter. From the moment they realized something was wrong, they began contacting friends, family, and anyone who might have seen Phoenix that day. When the local authorities seemed slow to act, the Coldons took matters into their own hands, even hiring private investigators to help with the case. In interviews, Goldia Coldon expressed her frustration with the investigation, feeling that law enforcement did not take her daughter's disappearance seriously at first. It was as if she just vanished off the face of the earth, Goldia would later say in multiple interviews, her voice heavy with the weight of a mother's grief. One of the private investigators the Coldons hired was a man named Steve Foster. He was a seasoned investigator with experience in missing persons cases. Foster, alongside other hired professionals, pored over the scant evidence that the police had initially gathered. His investigative team focused on areas that law enforcement had seemingly overlooked, including Phoenix's phone records, her online activity, and interviews with people who had known her in the months leading up to her disappearance. Foster believed that there were inconsistencies in the official investigation and was convinced that vital clues had been missed in the early stages. Foster also delved into Phoenix's possible connections with people outside her usual circle of friends and family. He retraced her last known movements and followed up on leads that had been dismissed, such as the sighting of her car parked strangely on the road with no sign of an accident. He conducted interviews with those who had seen Phoenix on the day she disappeared and chased down tips that suggested she might have been involved with dangerous individuals. Despite his efforts, however, Foster and his team struggled to find any conclusive evidence that would explain what had happened to Phoenix. Frustrated by the lack of cooperation from local law enforcement, Foster began to publicly criticize the initial handling of the case. He expressed his belief that if more resources and attention had been devoted early on, the investigation might have taken a different direction. Foster's efforts, along with the Coldon family's relentless pursuit of justice, kept the case alive in the media, but without new leads, Phoenix's disappearance remained a heartbreaking mystery. With the private investigators uncovering small but significant pieces of information that painted a more complex picture of Phoenix's life leading up to her disappearance. For instance, there were signs that Phoenix had been living a double life, one known to her family and another that she had kept hidden. The private investigators found that Phoenix had multiple social media profiles, some of which were linked to a more secretive side of her life that her parents were unaware of. Despite these efforts, law enforcement remained tight-lipped about any substantial developments. The local police department claimed that they were still investigating but didn't have much new information to release. Over time, the case grew colder, and with no new leads, both the Coldon family and the private investigators faced the harsh reality that they might never find the answers they so desperately sought. They felt that Phoenix's story was not receiving the kind of widespread attention that other missing persons cases, particularly those involving young white women, often garnered. In multiple interviews, Goldia spoke out about this disparity, pointing to the broader issue of race and how it impacts which cases are prioritized and given airtime. Phoenix's parents continued their efforts by organizing community events, distributing flyers, and speaking to any media outlet that would listen. They were determined not to let their daughter's case fade into obscurity, believing that keeping her story in the public eye was crucial to finding out what had happened to her. They maintained a website and social media pages dedicated to the search for Phoenix, with the hope that someone somewhere might come forward with information that could finally break the case. In 2014, the Coldons received a glimmer of hope when they were contacted by a woman who claimed to have seen Phoenix alive in Texas. This lead, along with others, turned out to be a dead end, but it gave the family a brief sense of renewed purpose. The tip was investigated, but no substantial evidence was found to support the claim. Similar sightings and potential leads would continue to come in sporadically, but none ever led to a definitive answer. Years later, in 2018, Oxygen's The Disappearance of Phoenix Coldon shed new light on the case, bringing the story back into the public eye. The two-part documentary delved into Phoenix's life, the circumstances of her disappearance, and the theories surrounding the case. It renewed interest in the story and spurred further conversations about the handling of missing persons cases involving people of color. The documentary included interviews with Phoenix's parents, private investigators, and local law enforcement, revisiting many of the unanswered questions that had lingered for years. Even after the media attention from the documentary, no major breakthroughs occurred. Phoenix Coldon's case, despite national exposure and years of effort, remained unsolved. The Coldons have never given up hope that one day they will learn the truth about what happened to their daughter, but the years of uncertainty have taken a toll on the family. Several theories have emerged over the years regarding Phoenix Coldon's mysterious disappearance. These theories are based on the limited evidence available and the efforts of both law enforcement and private investigators. While none have been definitively proven, they each offer potential explanations for what could have happened to Phoenix on that fateful day. Voluntary disappearance. One of the earliest theories considered by both investigators and Phoenix's family was that Phoenix may have been planning to leave and start a new life. Supporters of this theory point to the fact that Phoenix took very few belongings with her, indicating she might have intended to come back or that she had arranged for someone else to help her relocate. However, Phoenix's close relationship with her family, particularly her mother, makes it difficult to believe that she would disappear without any contact. Additionally, her bank accounts remained untouched and no credible sightings of her have surfaced, which has cast doubt on the idea that she left voluntarily. Human trafficking. Another prominent theory is that Phoenix may have been abducted and forced into human trafficking. Human trafficking is a serious issue in the region, and given Phoenix's age, appearance, and vulnerability, some believe she could have been targeted by traffickers. Private investigators hired by the Coldon family explored this possibility, and several witnesses came forward with tips suggesting Phoenix may have been seen in the company of individuals involved in the trafficking underworld. However, none of these leads produced concrete evidence, and no one has come forward with credible information to confirm this theory. Foul play and unapproved relationships. Investigators have looked into the possibility that someone close to Phoenix, or someone she met through these new associations, may have harmed her. While no direct evidence has surfaced, it's possible that Phoenix's disappearance was the result of foul play by someone she knew or trusted. Mental health crisis. Some have speculated that Phoenix may have been experiencing a mental health crisis, which could explain her increasingly erratic behavior in the months leading up to her disappearance. However, there is no official record of Phoenix having been diagnosed with any mental health condition, and her family insists that she showed no signs of severe distress. Abduction by strangers. A more straightforward theory is that Phoenix may have been abducted by a stranger after her car was abandoned. Perhaps her car broke down or ran out of gas, and while she waited for help, she encountered someone who took advantage of the situation. The area where her car was found was not particularly isolated, but it wasn't heavily trafficked either, making it plausible that someone could have abducted her without being seen. There are no confirmed witnesses to support this theory, and no one has come forward with information about seeing Phoenix with a stranger that day. However, the lack of physical evidence, including no signs of a struggle at the scene, leaves this theory on the table. Phoenix Coldon's disappearance remains a heart-wrenching mystery, with no resolution in sight. But her story, like so many others, reminds us of the importance of keeping these cases alive in the public consciousness. It's crucial to continue sharing these stories to keep the discussion going and to push for the truth to come to light. If you or someone you know has any information about the disappearance of Phoenix Coldon, please contact the appropriate authorities. And if you've been affected by a similar case, you can find links to organizations that offer support and advocacy in the description below. As always, stay safe, stay curious, and remember the truth is out there waiting to be discovered. Thank you for watching.